Now, Americans behind these private evacuations tell Fox News that the State Department is the only reason their planes have not left Afghanistan. This is a satellite image here showing 6 planes just sitting on the tarmac, and there is confusion over what exactly is causing the holdup. One of the people involved in the evacuation effort says the U.S. is refusing to confirm if flights have been cleared for takeoff and is banning them from landing in nearby countries. They say, quote, "This is zero place to be negotiating with American lives. Those are our people standing on the tarmac, and all it takes is a phone call. If one life is lost as a result of this, the blood is on the White House's hands." A State Department spokesperson responding with this statement, quote, "We understand the concern that many people are feeling as they try to facilitate further charter and other passage out of Afghanistan. We do not have personnel on the ground. We do not have air assets in the country. We do not control the airspace, whether over Afghanistan or elsewhere in the region. Given these constraints, we also do not have a reliable means to confirm the basic details of charter flights, including who may be organizing them, the number of U.S. citizens and other priority groups on board, the accuracy of the rest of the manifest, and where they plan to land, among many other issues." Meantime, Republican Congressman Michael McCaul claiming passengers on some planes trying to leave Afghanistan are essentially being held hostage by the Taliban. Watch.
We have hundreds of American citizens left behind enemy lines in Afghanistan as I speak. We have 6 airplanes at Mazar Sharif Airport, 6 airplanes with American citizens on them as I speak, also with these interpreters, and the Taliban is holding them hostage for demands.
Kennedy, this is a tragedy of our own making, it appears.
Absolutely right. And, you know, you have a lot of former military who've gone over to the region to help process some of these people and get them out of Afghanistan. And so now they are helpless. They are stranded, and they're doing whatever they can to get out of the country, including using private means and networks of people who are communicating with various veterans groups to vet and get the list of names of people who need to get out of the country. And that's what they're doing. They are working feverishly still, and it's much more perilous for them. But can you imagine being trapped on one of those planes? You can't trust the federal government. You can't trust the White House. And, you know, you're also essentially, and I think Congressman McCaul is right, being held hostage by the Taliban. So you're in between these two behemoth institutions, and it should be the government that has your back. And the people who are facilitating these flights are saying, you know, they want to fly American citizens and visa holders and allies to Qatar. But in Doha, they're saying, well, we can't do that until the State Department gives us clearance because we don't want to upset the U.S. federal government. And apparently the State Department is blocking those flights as well.
And David, to Kennedy's point, the hand-wringing now by the State Department is particularly untenable given they share the lion's share of the responsibility for this. And now they are not denying the accusations that it is indeed they who represent the largest roadblock.
Absolutely. We now have Americans who want to leave Afghanistan who cannot. And we have Afghan nationals who are coming to the U.S. that we're not sure we want them or not because the reports on the vetting process are questionable at best. I mean, this whole fiasco is as if you, Emily, were building a house and your builder, your contractor, told you to do A, B, and C, and you did D, E, and F. At every turn where this administration has gotten counsel from our allies or their own department officials, the White House has chosen to go the other way, and now we just have a big mess on our hands.
And that refusal to go with option A, B, or C had deadly consequences for 13 of our U.S. service members. And Tommy, all of this, including horror stories mounting up from that country, all this as the commander-in-chief is on vacation.
Once again on vacation, taking Labor Day off. None of us are surprised by that. Every time there's a major event in this country, he seems to be out of the office. And we know that Kamala is set to go to California and campaign for Gavin Newsom later this week. But this is all just evidence on how poorly planned this entire operation was. But I'd also like to compare and contrast what's going on right now with those Americans that are stranded in Afghanistan and compare that to our wide open southern border. We've got over 1 million illegal immigrants surging across our southern border, and yet we've got Americans in Afghanistan Afghanistan, and the State Department is saying they don't really have a plan to get them out. They're basically saying that they don't have responsibility for it, but then reports are saying that they might actually be blocking these Americans from getting out, these planes from leaving. So let's just compare and contrast that. It seems to me that this America Last administration at every turn just continues to put America further and further behind while opening the floodgates and opening our doors to the world's people. My goodness, this administration is one disaster after another, one dumpster fire after another. And the worst part of it is they don't even seem to care.
And Leslie, the juxtaposition is so stark. As we were showing those images on the screen a moment ago, the video of our commander-in-chief being able to leave his tarmac, I believe that was on Marine One for his vacation, while there are 6 flights, 6 planes stranded downed on the tarmac of the Afghanistan airport there. And the White House spokesman maintains Americans simply don't want to leave. But these attempted charter flights really say otherwise.
There's so much here to unravel. Ms. LaCree is actually responsible for one of those charter flights. She has 34 passengers for that charter flight. She said no one is being held hostage, and we're getting conflicting information. One, because Reuters and other news outlets have not been able to substantiate and verify these claims. Two, we have 2 Republican congressmen. We have McCall saying that it's the Taliban holding them hostage. We have Walt say it's the State Department holding them hostage. And then what we're hearing, and if the State Department is holding them hostage, we're getting that information from the Taliban, who I think we'd all agree none of us would believe. We need to have the facts. The facts are approximately 100 Americans are in Afghanistan. Some of them do not want to leave. I've spoken to some family members who want to stay with their family members there, at least for the time being. We have no evidence that there is a hostage situation. Not only has the White House said that and the State Department said that. And with regard to a president going to their home, whether it was George W. Bush in Texas, Barack Obama visiting his family in Hawaii, Donald Trump playing golf, or Joe Biden in his home in Delaware, presidents really never stop working, even if they go to their home away from the White House home while they're president, whether it is 1 or 2 terms. I think we all know that. They have a staff with them. They are apprised of what is being done. The State Department continually repeats that they're doing everything that they can. There are private charter companies that are stating they're going to give the manifest to the State Department. State Department is saying we need those manifests. Obviously, they can't just give a green light for anyone to get on a plane. We certainly don't want any of that Taliban government getting on one of those charters.
Fox News has verified some of those manifests, and they've published that reporting. You can see that. And to your point about Joe Biden works in his home away from home, he doesn't even work when he's in the White House. You know, if I were one of these family members in America waiting for someone to return from Afghanistan, I'm sorry, but that's not satisfactory to me. And you don't trust the Taliban? Neither do I. But guess what? I also don't trust the State Department and this administration, because it has been lies for 4 administrations, and they're continuing that now.
And Tommy, part of the rub, as Leslie and Kennedy have just outlined, is that despite the global convention that the Taliban is untrustworthy, the State Department maintains that their reliance on them, that's required to get Americans out safely. So how do we even navigate that moving forward, with, as Leslie points out, we don't even have information coming out reliably because it's one big opaque mess?
Well, again, it's always easy to look back and say we could have done this better. I think most Americans would agree that we could have done this better and made better plans so that we didn't have this kind of disaster that we're confronting now. But that's neither here nor there. We have to move forward. I would just say also last week, though, President Biden did tell us that it was in the self-interest of the Taliban to work with the United States. It was in their self-interest to be in some way helpful to us, the United States. We all know that that's not the case, whether it's the Taliban, whether it's ISIS, ISIS-K, whether it's any of the 15 other offshoot Islamic groups. We cannot trust them. We never should trust them. We do not leave Americans behind. And I think, again, we're all going back to we need the facts, we need answers. Well, the person we need facts and answers from is the president and the commander-in-chief. But sadly, he is on vacation. And to Kennedy's point, absolutely, he does not work when he's in the White House. He doesn't work when he's in Delaware. He doesn't work when he's anywhere. And that goes for his vice president as well. We need answers. We deserve them. We get nothing. And
David, the fate of these Americans are in his hands, are in the State Department's hands, and those Americans include reports of school children, American school children that are still stranded there in that country.
given some of the decisions that President Biden has made, maybe we want him to stay on vacation and let the experts kind of deal with this matter, which has not seemed to have been the case so far. The president making, as we were discussing earlier, every wrong decision to date. But this is why the allies in the Middle East are so important. And this instability that we have now caused will make many of our allies cautious about helping us get Americans out of there and making sure those Afghan nationals who we want to come here are actually able to come here. This, as I said earlier, is a mess of monumental proportions, and President Biden continues to make every wrong decision when he has to make a decision.
And I fear the worst is ahead of us, which is even more frightening to consider.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.